Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cinema Wave podcast here at the Culture Wave Media Network. And boy, do we have a big one for you guys. This is a movie that originally we thought was coming out in 2025. It made all three of the hosts' top 10 most anticipated movies list. It's finally here. It released on April 3rd this past weekend. We're finally here to talk about it. It is Kristoffer Borgli's The Drama, starring Zendaya and Robert Pattinson. I'm going to be one of your hosts for this episode. My name is Darian Scalamoni. I am joined this time by Liz Seiko.
Hello.
And Zach Miller.
How's it going, guys?
All three of us had this movie in our top 10 2 years ago. We were very excited for this. Let's rewind a bit. Let's go back to 2023 when Culture Wave first started, and we attended our first Montclair Film Festival, and we got to attend the premiere of Kristoffer Borgli's American English language directorial debut with Dream Scenario. We were all talking about this movie for the rest of 2023, from the beginning of 2024, starring Nicolas Cage. We loved Dream Scenario. I hope I'm not speaking out of turn for either of you, but
No.
as I recall, we all loved that movie, and we were like, we can't wait to see what this guy has next. And then he casts two of the biggest stars on the planet to lead his next movie that is basically a twisted tale of romance, of drama, lots of things in this movie. Lots to chew on, lots of big topics, a very controversial movie for a lot of different reasons, but the movie finally released in theaters. It is an A24 movie. It is the third highest grossing opening weekend for A24 ever, as this movie is led by Zendaya and Robert Pattinson, two of the biggest stars, as I said, on the planet right now. So, broad thoughts for you guys coming into this movie. What did you expect? And how did you feel? Again, no spoilers yet on how you kind of felt about what Kristoffer Borgli kind of put together with the drama.
Zach, I'll go first.
You can go
All
first.
right, I'll go first.
Go for it. Ladies first.
I think that they did a really maybe controversial to say, but I think the marketing for this film was very well done. I think that they didn't share too much in the promotion of it. I think that they made it seem like it was going to be like a drama, very heightened tale of the wedding week, which is already just like a wild time anyways. And so I went in, I think where everybody else was, pretty blind. I did know that there was a certain topic that was going to pop up. I just didn't know where or how. So I was aware of like one of the controversial conversations, and I just didn't know to what aspects. But I went in very excited. I love the casting between the two of them, Pattinson and Zendaya. I think that they have like really great chemistry on screen. I think that they're very fun to watch, and them just like playing off of each other. I think it's some of their best work too. I mean, Zendaya for her career, I think that Still Rue is one of her best roles, but I would say Emma is like pretty up there, and Rob is a very hit or miss actor for me. Like sometimes I'm just like not feeling what he's putting out there, but this, I really loved his take in this film. I'm very excited to talk to you guys about it. I think there's a lot of like heavy conversation and a lot of innuendos and a lot of themes happening. And I think that this is just one of those films that is getting conversations started, and even if they are awkward conversations.
Zach?
Yeah, I was really hyped to see another movie from Kristoffer Borgli after Dream Scenario, because he had such a good understanding of how to play comedy through awkwardness, and that's something that I feel like is so common nowadays too, because there's like a little bit of a disconnect between people with social media and cell phones and stuff. I feel like I experience a lot of conversations between people that are just awkward and they don't know how to say the right thing. And he's one of the only filmmakers I've seen do it in a very naturalistic way. But yeah, this story is also very interesting. It's got a very rom-com style story of, you know, it's chaotic wedding week, like you were saying, Liz. It's got a lot going for it. It's got Pattinson, it's got Zendaya, but it's about, you know, how are these characters going to shift from this one incident? And that's what the marketing I appreciated about the marketing too, is that they didn't give away that incident. I was spoiled a little bit before I saw the movie, but also what Borgli does too, even with Dream Scenario, it's this really weird event or this really crazy event, and then how do the characters react from this instance, and like how does that affect the relationships. So I think Borgli has that understanding of just how to develop his characters through major conflict and in an intimate way, without it being overblown, without it being action. He was describing this as another intimate piece. So I really like dialogue pieces, especially with comedies. Your dialogue has to be sharp. He's really good with that. And then he's, like you said, he's got two of the biggest stars on the planet, and I always enjoy their work anyways. But
yeah, so this movie for me was an interesting viewing experience. One, I want to say, I think I had, if I didn't say this already, I do think it's one of Zendaya's best performances. I think that there's not a lot of actresses working today that could handle the balance of what this movie is trying to say about what her character did in the way that she's able to do it. I think that also, like, coming from a world maybe like Euphoria lends itself well to how she's able to balance the tonal whiplash of what this movie kind of gives and makes for everybody else. It's a topic that it's a little too severe for me sometimes to get into the specifics of it because of my past as an educator and just dealing with the violent truths of what the world is. And again, we'll get into the twist and what that means. But I do think that on a technical level also, I think the message that comes across is what I was most disappointed with, because it feels hollow. It feels like, coming off of what Dream Scenario was, I didn't feel like, like a lot of times when we talk about serious topics in movies and things like that, you want to be able to have something where someone is giving their voice across more so, where they're able to really give their opinion on something. Like, I feel like we got into this topic with like one battle after another. Mm-hmm. I don't feel that way at all with what Borgli does, because, and he does have, I guess, the focus somewhere else in terms of the relationship versus the incident, so to speak. But from someone coming from, again, maybe it's a biased perspective, maybe this is me being subjective, I think that if you're going to swing that hard with a topic as he does in this movie, you have to kind of establish a real voice for it and make a stance. And I don't think that this movie does that. And so that's where it's a conundrum for me as a viewer to be like, okay, am I going to invest in these characters and invest in these stories? Because he has an interesting approach to kind of flashback and showcasing Zendaya's character when she's younger, when she's going through turmoil in her life. But it didn't resonate the same way with me that I feel like it would have if I kind of heard it more from Zendaya. Even like in those conversations, it feels like there's a lot of her pleading with what she dealt with, but it's a lot of listening to like Rob's interpretation of what she went through instead of kind of seeing it from her perspective, if that makes sense.
Yes.
You might disagree. Yeah.
No, I agree with you, but I think that is kind of what he's trying to talk about in this film, is that we as people will never know what somebody went through, and the only way for us to understand is through our own interpretation. And so almost every flashback we see, it's not from that person that experienced its point of view, it's from somebody else's point of view and them trying to like wrap their heads around it and understand it. And so it could be like a skewed experience because it's not them. And I think that is what he's trying to like talk about and uncover and get people thinking about, is like, how do we empathize or not empathize or judge other people based on things that we've learned about people? And like, are we able to look at a situation and just take it at its face value? Or do we need to like fully understand every aspect of it in order to make an opinion? Or can we just make an opinion based on the information that that person's giving us?
Yeah.
Zach? I think that it's got a lot going for it. I think something that I found that Pattinson said, he said a couple things in several interviews, but something that all encompasses what the film is about, because I think there's the irrefutable act of violence that is alluded to. That is, it could be in any form to me, not just that act specifically, but Borgli had to come up with something that is irrefutably, there's no wavering on that. Like that's an unsung, like you can't do that. That's heinous, that kind of thing. So it's weaponizing one act as like, okay, well, that's deplorable. Where do I go from here with my partner? And I think that the act could have been something different and it would have the same effect. So Borgli is more concerned with how does this affect people differently. And Pattinson said, he said something, morality is very subjective in the story. Your personal morality is different from your group morality. So everyone kind of processes things differently. Alana Haim is like, yeah, this is like unbelievable. She has to get canceled. Like, how can you do this? She's moving on. Yeah, she's exactly like she goes her own way. Pattinson is like still trying to stay with Zendaya and find a way to make it work. And then he also said, most romances have individual characters growing in themselves, but in this, they're not always falling apart, and we want to be with each other. So they're trying to make it work. And then they're both very committed at working to be with one another. It feels unusually romantic. So there's like this blend of like really dark humor with like, okay, well, I actually do want to stand by my partner on this. I think if they both went their separate ways and he's like, well, I got to find somebody better. And Zendaya was like clawing her way back to be like the silly, whimsical person, you know, then it goes a completely different way. So I think it's really like judging one act in different ways and taking that as different people. And then what does that look like? And then when you add in the comedic element, it dials it up to 12 and you're like, okay, well, this is hilarious how they're reacting to this because they're extremely awkward or like they don't know what to say. So they say the complete wrong thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I think that so let's get into the specific plot of what this
I think
movie
we can
is.
only dance around it for so long.
So this is again, this is a twisted romance. That's how I would explain what this film really is. It starts as kind of a meet cute. It's kind of Robert Pattinson's character. Do you remember his name off the top of your head? Charlie.
Yeah.
Charlie, it throws you right into the movie as soon as the film begins, which Dream Scenario did a very similar thing, which also we'll get into more later, but I am curious on your guys' thoughts about the formula of this movie, because to me, it actually feels very similar to Dream Scenario. Like the what's the word? The pacing is almost, I think, the exact same. Like the pacing and the structure. But so Charlie is in a coffee shop and he wants to try to flirt with Zendaya's character, and she is, what's her character name? Remember? Emma. So Charlie comes up to Emma and he wants to flirt with her, and it all starts, first of all, which this I love, starts on a lie. It starts on a lie about him trying to infatuate her and make her find him attractive and like him just by lying about a book that she's reading, having said that he had read the entire book. So he Wikipedia's it and he wants to jump into this. Fast forward, we know that they're now in a relationship. They are engaged to be married. And at the food and wine tasting, there is a moment between them and their best friends, who are played by Mamoudou, Athie, and Alana Haim. And they are... Alana Haim's character, Rachel, is the one who's kind of like... She jumpstarts this conversation of being like, we have to tell each other the craziest thing that we've ever done that we've never told anybody. And so everybody kind of goes around the table, and when we finally get to... Everybody has these crazy things. Alana Haim locked... her character locked a autistic boy in a closet. Robert Pattinson's character did major cyberbullying, which had a kid move when he was 14 in his family. Zendaya's character reveals that when she was an adolescent, she had plans to enact a shooting. And obviously the whole movie shifts in tone from that point forward. And it's an incredibly tense moment. It is a moment that feels awkward, not only for, and again, I'm curious your guys' like viewing experiences. Like my theater, I felt like I felt the room flip. Like it was such a crazy feeling where everyone was like, what did she just say? Like literally almost kind of saying exactly what the other characters were saying, especially Alana Haim's character. So once that twist does finally happen, it's kind of a downward spiral between both Charlie and Emma of trying to deal with the repercussions of their actions from when they were younger and admitting to kind of how they feel about it now that it's out in the open. And it drastically affects their feelings for one another. It directly affects their actions and their wedding of their dreams that could potentially come crashing down. So once that twist happens, Liz, where do you sit with the movie and kind of the ride that Borgli kind of takes you on the rest of the way?
Yeah, I agree. The theater definitely changed. It was very much like rom-com-y in the beginning, and then this conversation starts to happen. I will say the change happened when Rachel was explaining what she did. to like the boy growing up. That's when everybody was like, wait, what? Because what she explains is so fucked up. And then like Charlie's character just casually going over cyberbullying to the point of somebody having to move, and like the fact that they all just like laugh about it. And so like I noticed that my theater didn't change only with Zendaya. It was like that entire scene completely changed. I thought it was a great change though, script wise. I think that it came early, like it gave us enough of a setup before it, but then it was the driving force for the rest of the script. And I think, I think it was timed right. And I don't have anything else to say about that part.
Zach, what about you?
With the dinner scene specifically,
Yeah.
I thought that it was really tense, very well rehearsed. I saw that they shot that scene that was about 20 pages in the script and then over like 4 days, which was really cool.
Yeah, it's a lot.
But it's the meatiest part of the movie besides the climax. So I think it's a very real conversation too. Like it felt very authentic to just how friends would talk, and then it escalates somewhere that you just like, I don't know how to handle this. But it really poses an interesting question about how would you see your partner differently, and then is there something that you're not telling me? Do I even know this person from here? So I mean, that's such a massive dilemma. I feel like there's just little things in our relationships and stuff that you're like, whoa, that was interesting that they said that. But like, can you imagine the weight of something to this severity? It was just a great conflict to be put in.
Yeah, and Borgli does do a good job of kind of balancing, though it is hard, the comedy in that moment and the aftermath of that, as well as the no pun intended, the drama that comes with that.
Yeah.
Because you see it right away when after he kind of works his brain around it. Like there's Pattinson really does do a good job in this movie too, because he's trying to interpret all of this revelation from the love of his life and something that is so despicable in terms of an act that anybody could endure, even think about doing. And they talk a bit about the psychology. That's kind of what I wanted more from, where I feel like I would have been able to kind of fully wrap my brain around the entire like pivot, because I wanted to see more of like, okay, where was the psychological part coming from? Like we see like one girl bump into her when she's at school and like that's it. Like that she's just thrown into it. But with Pattinson's character, you go from the moments of like the immediate where he's like, I need you to talk me through every single aspect of what made you believe that this was fucking okay, to then going like the next morning and like her cutting up fruit for a smoothie and she like fucks with him by going like, and like holding a knife to his face, and like that elicits a laugh like in the theater, because it's dealing with that. And this is not new to cinema. Like it reminds me of like So You Married an Axe Murderer, like something with like Mike Myers, where it's like you're about to go on this crazy course of like, you didn't realize you married a psychopath, good luck, buddy. But they do balance a lot of that throughout Pattinson's character than the rest of the way.
Yeah. Well, I think that they needed to like push the envelope with her like putting the knife at him, because it is supposed to be like, what, do you really think that she's gonna like murder you in the middle of the night right now? And so I don't know if I fully agree with the needing more explanation about the choice that she made when she was in high school, because like, I don't know, I think it's also like she is explaining that like maybe she doesn't know anymore, you know, like you think back to the things that you did when you were younger, obviously not to like this scale, but like sometimes you think back and you're like, I don't know why I did that. Like I was a stupid kid, and like it seemed like the world was the craziest thing when you were younger, but now that you're like a fully formed adult, you look back at the situation and can see the full scope. And a part of me thinks that's where Zendaya is going with the character of being like, she doesn't know the exact moment of like when it developed the plan, because the way that I interpreted was that it wasn't just one single moment. It was all these moments added on together. And then also it's, and she says this, she's like, it's like the idealization of being a shooter, which I do agree. I think that shooters are romanticized in our country. I think that they become very famous and well-known people, and I think that it's really messed up, but they are almost put on like a pedestal in a way of views, and like everybody knows shooters now, and they can like know their names, they know them from all past ones. And so I think that that's more what they're trying to get at, not necessarily the psychological of it, just more of the actual social, like the socialness of a shooting and how casually it's put out there for children to see. You know?
Yeah.
I also wanted to just compliment Zendaya's performance, like you guys have been as well. But I thought it was really nice to see how disarming it was for her to be a little powerless, or mostly powerless throughout the movie. Just thinking about challengers, she kind of has all the leverage in that movie. But this one, she is fighting just to speak up and vouch for her reputation. There was something very interesting that she said in an interview, too, that she said, Emma has a fragility that I enjoyed uncovering, a permanent or perpetual little girl seeking to be loved and accepted while balancing how to be a grown woman, seeing that innocent, vulnerable, childlike feeling come through at points. So she's clawing her way back to seek validation from people. And when she was a young person in high school and she was bullied and she had no validation, and it seemed like her parents weren't around too, because there's a lot of flashbacks to her just being alone at home. You know, there's a lot of like you have to earn your approval from people, or she's trying to just be accepted by people. So that ripples into her marriage as well. And I think that's something that wasn't faded from the shooting incident. So I think that there are things that carried over into their relationship, but she's just trying to identify herself as well, and she can't let that go, I think. But she's trying to separate the violence that would lead to that conclusion to earn her keep, you know, in a way. I think that she's moved on from that as a young person, but now she's moving into, I'm an adult now and I can prepare myself for these situations. But now that people know about my past, like, is that what defines me, you know?
Yeah, well, because she's trying to reconcile from the fact that it's something that even came from her brain when she doesn't want to think about it. And you see it in the scenes, like you see it in the when it gets to it, kind of, I mean, it's uncomfortable for the viewer. It gets to a point where she's like, I don't want to talk about this anymore. Like, I need you to drop it. But then at the same time, like, there's a lot of things that then have a result on how Charlie's behaving. I mean, they kind of go across all of it. They go from a level of how he is able to do his job by just seeing any gun in any reference photo or any other book, and he kind of obsesses over it. There is how he's acting sexually. He's not able to get it up, as people would say, like in moments, because he can't separate the fact that he loves this woman and he finds her sexually attractive because of what he now knows about her being a young girl and her thought process of when this thing could have occurred if it did. And so one of the things I do like is that they balance all of this on top of the wedding in general. Like, so much of this is clashing against the fact that, like, it all is coming up to that we also have a wedding to think about in like a week from now or 2 weeks, because they don't really give a clear timeline.
It's the
I feel
week
like
of.
it's like they in the beginning of the week they're doing the testing or whatever, with like the food tasting and stuff. And there's a line that the dance instructor says where she goes, "A wedding is performative by nature." And it is interesting to your point, Liz, about kind of the parallels of how a shooting in today's culture, American culture, could be performative as well. So I do like the parallels of that. I understand it. It's just a hard topic. It's a hard topic for me to talk about. But I get it.
It's also that I don't think Borgli wants this to be a film that's fully focused on shootings. I don't think he wants it to be like that's the only conversation and topic that he's talking about, which is probably why he doesn't go into like depth. I think it's much more he wants to talk about relationships and judgment and regrets and like our past, and can you like what should we be judging each other on too. So I think he's using this as like the plot and the story and like the poll, but I don't think that he wants it to be the main focus. I think that it's all these other elements that are surrounding it that he wants to unravel and unpack. Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, well,
I know it's tough.
No,
but
because it's
I
also
think there's more.
it's dealing also with, again, like you guys have both talked about. It's more so about the aspect of, kind of what could be seen as like a hard thing to deal with your partner, like an undiscovering and something like that. But like, there's also the whole aspect of like, again, Borgli with what's been going on with him, where there was like an essay released about like how he was in like a May-December sort of relationship with a teenager when he was a 27-year-old. It's like there's parts of it that feels wrong because you're dealing with something that is a taboo topic in his own life that is then being reflected on screen in a certain way, you know, and like it is reflected in a very short kind of scene, when you see kind of Pattinson's character walking around with the 15-year-old version of Zendaya's character, which is a young girl. Don't know how old the actual actress is. But like, there's also that part of it that's like, when you have actualizations, it's like when we see Kevin Spacey in movies now, it's like there's something that's added to that. You know what I mean? So when the storyteller is the one that's telling the story and is unpacking something that could be viewed as taboo when he's done something taboo himself, it makes it a bit more difficult to swallow.
That's not the life experience you want to pull from at all. Yeah, exactly.
So I don't know. We don't have to talk about this if we think we shouldn't, but
I don't know if it's like the main focus of this story specifically, but I do agree with your point. I mean, when it's something that is pretty sus in general, just for somebody to be experiencing, and then also knowing that other, like, I mean, Woody Allen was also mentioned in his essay that he wrote, talking about Manhattan, and how it was like a 42-year-old having a relationship with a 17-year-old, and then Woody Allen has had his own fallout being a director. So I think it's something that should be in conversation and not condoned in somebody's work, given what we've seen in the past, you know? Like, I think it's important or for him to at least say, hey, that was kind of messed up at that time, but for it to kind of come out based off of an essay that was published a while ago, it's a little concerning. But yeah, I don't think that it's proper at all to be including that part in your work.
It's just not on his own accord either, like you said, Zach. It came from an essay that was released 14 years ago that someone discovered or rediscovered in anticipation of by far the biggest project he's ever made in his entire life. So it's a complicated conversation, it's a complicated movie, it's a complicated story in general. But I do think that, again, like we're big fans of his last work, and he is able to take these thorny subjects and flip them on their head and make people react in ways that are not natural and react in ways that it does make you think. And I do like that it is a film that makes you think. I would rather have a film that makes you think versus doesn't. I
agree. I also think that I like films where people have differing opinions. I think that if we're all walking out feeling the same way, that can still be a good film. But like, I don't know, if we're talking about something so divisive, I want people to be coming out with different feelings and points of view. And like, I'm seeing the biggest discourse online about this is that people feel that it's the conversation of like, okay, they all, when the friends are all saying the bad thing that they did, well, all three of them actually did something. And some people are saying that Emma didn't actually do anything. She just preemptively put a plan together, but yet she's getting the most. Everybody's responding to hers, even though Charlie literally online bullied somebody to the point that he had to leave. Rachel locked a kid in a closet overnight, and then a huge search party happened, and she didn't even help. And then Mike literally used his ex-girlfriend as a human shield to protect himself from being bitten by a dog. And so like, they all harmed a person. And so I don't, and the thing is, I don't know how I feel about it. And like, that I think is just.
That's really interesting the way you put that.
Yeah. And so this is all I see online. And I think that sometimes art isn't supposed to give you the exact answer. It's just supposed to get you starting to think and talk about it. And like, I don't know how I feel, because it's like, yeah, I think what she did is really, really bad. But like, also, yeah, she didn't
Actually
do it.
Yeah.
But yet they're all coming down her throat, even though they all physically harmed a person. But the end for her could have been way worse than theirs, but it wasn't. So it's
a messy thing.
It's messy, but I think that it's just, I don't know. I think art should be this way sometimes, of being messy and letting people try to figure it out on our own.
And so I don't want to. So I've seen a movie this year. I'm glad we're having this conversation, because in the middle of the conversation, I can objectively try to take a step back.
Please.
Because I was very distraught with this movie, but I'm going to try to do my best here. So I saw a movie in the beginning of the year called Josephine. And it's making me think a lot about the themes of what Josephine is, where it deals with probably the thing that is, again, you can judge morally however you judge certain things, but the thing that is probably just as bad as what she dreams up in this film is a child seeing a sexual assault happen. And
which Josephine is, that's the premise.
Yes, and it's graphic. Like, the scene is graphic in the movie. And I will say, what we get in this movie from the twists or the big moral questions, it's not as graphic. It deals with something that, again, from my perspective as a former educator, subjectively, it is my biggest nightmare. And it is something that will make me feel gross anytime I have to talk about it, think about it, see any subject matter about it ever. When you see a commercial about these things happening, it's like, why is there propaganda based on what this is? Like, how have we, as a culture, gotten to this point where, like, now we have to warn people of shootings happening in gatherings? Like, that is an unfortunate reality that we deal with. And at the same time, I'm, like, more deeply affected with the way they do it in this film because of how it affects me. So, but something like Josephine, it's happening, and it didn't happen to me, and I don't have a direct, like, impactful thing. Not that I'm not saying it's not bad, but I haven't had that happen to me.
Yes.
And it's like, I don't have that same feeling with it, but it raises the questions, like what this movie does. And so even when what he did with Dream Scenario, a lot of what he did was that he's talking about celebrity, which this movie is similar. Like you said, it kind of talks a little bit about the glorification of what a shooter could be and become. But the last movie, it's definitely more comedic. Yeah. Like, Dream Scenario is definitely more comedic in the way that it handles it. But Zach, like, too, for you, we can keep going on this topic of the message in general, but also, like, the way that Borgli's able to kind of tell this story in the way that he does, is that what makes you come away from it really kind of enjoying the way that he is as a storyteller? Or, like, how do you feel about kind of the way that the story unfolds in general?
Yeah, I think he's a director who can have uncomfortable conversations with with exaggerated experiences plus real elements. You know, like I think a lot of us have, like, close friends that, you know, you feel vulnerable having these conversations with, and maybe somebody takes something the wrong way. But then there's also, like, all of the stuff that is in this movie could be, like, it's real. Like, it's all real subject matter. He has a good way of approaching difficult topics with, you know, just levity in its comedy and its tension and that kind of thing. And I think he trusts his actors to really guide that with the script. But yeah, I definitely, like, really enjoy his approach to making these things feel very real world. And just more of what we're saying, like, even what Liz was saying too, there shouldn't be a clear-cut winner in this type of subject matter either. I like how there is no white knight that's like, oh, well, this is the wrong thing to do. There's no Captain America that's like, oh, well, this is the justice thing to do. As the story progresses, you find out that all of these characters are corruptible, which is another thing I want to talk about soon. But just how like Pattinson's character, you think he is very, like, the straight edge moral compass of the movie, and then he takes his own route during his unraveling with the situation. So I think that, like, people in general are corruptible by a lot of these things, or they have to look out for themselves in their own way. Kind of what he was saying in the interview, I found too, like, morality is independent per person. Like, maybe this is a deal breaker for Alana Haim's character, but not Pattinson's. Like, maybe he can work through this, but she can't. And I think that's really interesting by just understanding the dichotomy of how different people react to different situations. I think that's the best part of his movies, and that's what I liked in Dream Scenario too.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, it also what you were saying before, Zach, of that Pattinson said that it's like how we respond in a group, right? Wasn't he saying something like that?
Group versus like self-think.
Yes,
Yeah.
and it gets me thinking, like, yeah, if in another world, like if Emma had told Charlie this when it was just the two of them, and it wasn't the week of their wedding, and it wasn't in front of two people that had very visceral reactions right away,
Right.
would it be bothering him as much? Or was it because Rachel had such a responsive, was so responsive, and then Charlie felt like, oh, well, I do need to be on the right side of this. And so it is that conversation too of like, do you change your opinion and thoughts on things
when you're in a group
based
scenario?
on based on who you're around? And then also adding in the wedding element. Already it's heightened. Like emotions are very high the week of your wedding. And so is he responding the way that he would if it was not a few days before them actually getting married, and then this is something that is forever attached to him?
Yeah,
because he's then married to her.
If they're engaged, well, they are engaged obviously, but it's like,
but if they're dating,
or they're like very newly engaged, they could just be like,
easier decision.
fuck this, I'm jumping ship. I'm not
Yeah.
dealing with whatever the fuck is gonna come with this, and I don't feel like dealing with it. So like, I do, Zach, I love that point that you brought up where you said you read that and it was an interview.
Yeah, I watched
Pattinson was talking
I
about
watched a video interview. Yeah, I think there was one with the New York Times, and then there was another magazine. But yeah,
because that is a really serious thing to weigh, because it's like, even, I mean, people might hate me for saying this if I'm outing everybody in the world, but I feel like most of us could admit that when you're with different groups of people, you're probably saying and doing different things.
That's a very fair point. Yeah.
So like, again, who knows? She's in this scenario where she feels forced to say something. Alana Haim's character is forceful. I mean, she's an intimidating presence.
She's wild.
She's an intimidating presence.
She's like the tough love in a way. Like, I don't think she's very loving in a lot of her confrontation, but she is like, I'm going to rip the Band-Aid and tell you exactly what you should do from this situation.
Well, you get it from the first moment you meet her character when she's like, you found love for the first time when you were 30.
Yeah.
Like, it's such a,
Very
it comes from just
judgmental.
a place of judgment.
She low-key hates Emma, just saying.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Low-key hates her.
Oh, and I hate Alana Haim in this movie, so it's fine. No, she's acting-wise, again, she does her job.
Yes,
but
she does.
Fucking hate her.
No, hate
You
her.
hate her.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think this film asks a lot of really interesting questions. And we get to this point of the unraveling. Zach talked a little bit about it, but the lead up to when we get to the lead up right before the wedding and then the actual wedding. So we have Pattinson finally putting an outsider in his shoes, basically talking to his coworker, being like, you know,
Misha.
Misha. Hey, Misha, if your boyfriend like had an idea to maybe like commit a mass shooting, like, what would you do? And she's like, I would call the police immediately. Like, no questions asked. And then there's like more that kind of comes with that scene. He has an obvious visceral emotional reaction that begins with him crying and ends with him ripping her clothes off. We go from that point to then the wedding day to where we got a lot more answers to things. And I liked the conclusion of the movie. I think that there's a lot that I do respect and enjoy about what the movie is trying to do. I think that the wedding, to me, is the funniest part. Which I don't know if maybe everybody had that experience, but there's a lot of moments to me in humor, in the fucked up humor, that Borgli does really well that's in that last 25 minutes. I personally believe. Like, I think the movie kind of turned me around in that last 25 minutes. And
it was the DJ, wasn't it?
The DJ's ridiculous, dude. The DJ's ridiculous. He's like a Munchkin from Wizard of Oz come to life. Like, if like you literally took like the Munchkin characters from the Wizard of Oz and you placed them in 2026 and you're like, do your best impression on trying to be a normal person.
What did he say? Are you a gearhead?
Are you a DJ Gearhead?
Are you a DJ Gearhead?
And he starts going through his DJ gear. It's crazy. It's so crazy. It's so awkward, but like it's kind of, again, awkward funny. And I personally really love the ending of the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I love the scene in the diner. So I try not to give away all the details of that, but for you guys, the conclusion of and how we end up towards the end of the movie from Pattinson's unraveling to the end in the diner, how did you feel about the way that they kind of wrapped it up?
So I'll start with his unraveling and him then trying to like have sex with Misha. So like that for me then also highlights what I was talking about before even more of like clearly his response to what he found out about Emma is not just fully engrossed in knowing that. It also has to do with just like the weight of the entire like week, because what really leads you to cheating on your partner because of what she did when she was younger? Like, there's no actual correlation except him just being at an extreme high that he's not able to like regulate and make wise choices. Again, I think it then also just like brings in that whole conversation again of like, she did not actually do anything, but yet he actually cheats on her. So like, what do both of them, or do they correlate as a couple that both of them equal each other, and that's why they're able to forgive each other in the end? Or is it truly that just everybody's fucked up and everybody has some weird like messed up thing about them, and at the end of the day, if you want to be with somebody, you kind of just have to accept that and forget about it and let it be in the past? And I'm glad that they went that route. I think it would have been a very dark, sad, depressing film if like they both had just like gone their separate ways and been like, no, we can't get past anything. Because like, yeah, you do want to believe that you can look at the better part of somebody and not see them for their worst moment in their life. Because if you can't, then like our humanity's just fucked in life. And like, that's what you hope for. I think it was also just another sweet moment, because really the only other sweet moment that we got between them, which was one of my favorite moments, was when she's like deaf and he's trying to like get her to hear when they're in their bedroom and he's like whispering to her in the ear. I loved that scene so much.
Zach, go ahead.
Yeah, I really also like leading up to the wedding too with Misha, and when he was just impulsively going through this adrenaline rush of like he wanted some return to normalcy in like the most like weird messed up way. He's gonna cheat on her. I also thought it was like such a mixed bag of emotions for him to like just try and get to the heat of the moment like that quickly and then back out of it. I thought that was such a creative way for Borgli to like, not only was it hilarious that he just completely like went vulnerable with this woman and then kind of left her out to dry, but also you can't take that back. Like, he started making out in the office and he was ready to do another heinous act of his own, and he didn't follow through with it 100%, but it was still something that you can't take back on the eve of your wedding either. And it was just such another good layer for Pattinson. Like, okay, this is his corruptible moment. Like, this is his own morality being challenged in his own way, and this is something that he made a choice on, and like you were saying too, like he followed through with that. And then I love, like, even The Office reminds me of a lot of these moments, is like you get the worst possible setting to have the worst dialogue, like in front of so many people, or like you say the worst thing in the unimaginable circumstance. And the climax with his speech, with the drunken stupor that he goes on when he is making his speech to Emma, is like, you know, that is your life defining moment. And for him to just bring in all of the weight that has been building up to this and just stammering through his words was that was like, for me, like the secondhand embarrassment was
bad.
Unreal.
I mean, like, it's so one, it's like, again, like he's like, she didn't kill anybody, and it's like, I can't believe he just said that out loud.
Yeah.
If you're referencing Scott's Tots, Zach, thank you for bringing up the most
That's
awkward
one of them.
moment of my entire existence as a
Diversity
human being.
Day. Yeah.
Because like Scott's Tots, to this day, as a 30-year-old, I must have seen that when I was, I don't know, 14 for the first time. To this day, it's the most uncomfortable I've ever felt with anything ever in The Office. And that's comedy. Like, that is heightened comedy, really trying to make you be like, oh my God, man, he made a promise to a classroom full of children that he's going to help them fulfill their dreams, and now that's not happening. And this is, I mean, Liz, you're the only one in this room that's married, so you can probably at least attest to how crazy of a day it is in general. Not that it wasn't, I'm sure, a lovely day and one of the best days, if not the best of your life.
But it is crazy.
But it's a crazy day where there's a lot of emotions and a lot of things happening, and this just takes it to 150. Like, it's an insane scene.
Was just watching that, and truly I was like going into my shell, because I was like, this is the worst thing that could happen on this day, is him just word vomiting every thought that he's having. And like, I mean, this is what like wedding guests dream of, is like seeing something like this go
Maybe
down at a
awful
wedding.
wedding guests that don't
No,
care
come
about the
on.
bride
You
and
secretly
groom.
hope like some drama goes down at some weddings. But no, literally.
Oh man.
I don't know what I
I
would have
think
done.
it's true though.
Yeah.
She held it together very well. I wouldn't have gone to the diner.
I also thought it was really great on Borgli's part to write this moment where Alana Haim had the moment, like she had that tension and the mic drop ready, and she just went through her speech, but there was that tension that you're just waiting as the audience to be like, oh, she's gonna take advantage of this, and for her to be kicked out as the maid of honor and then just say, yeah, I'm gonna make my speech now, you're just like, oh my gosh. So
Well, she also, but like, unless I'm remembering wrong, it's almost alluded to that she kind of comes to the aid of the situation. Does she not? Because she's screaming at Misha's boyfriend after he headbutts Robert Pattinson.
Well, yeah, but I think that's because she's probably like, oh, I'm
wanted to go.
anti-violence. I'm anti-violence.
So she's really just getting like her word out.
She's the drama.
Yeah, yes.
To me, she is like, when she
Stirring the
sees,
pot.
when she's
Yeah.
literally a shark. Like she smells a little bit of drama going on, and she's like, I'm on it. Let's go. And like, why would and it's also the conversation of like, she clearly is one of those people that inserts herself in things that absolutely have nothing to do with her, but then she makes herself a part of it. And then like her story is now like, oh my God, this guy was yelling at me at a wedding, and like I got involved in like a fight at a wedding. And it's like, no, you inserted yourself into it. And it's kind of the same thing of like when Emma's explaining like, I did this when I was younger, and this is the worst thing that I've ever done in my life. And then Rachel brings up her cousin that nobody knows about.
And the cousin becomes a foil for later in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
And like she is just, we all know one of those people that like you were explaining a very specific story and they're like, oh no, I've experienced that. And it's like, how could you possibly have experienced that? Like this is such a specific, like a niche thing. But so her character for me is like the perfect archetype of one of the worst people on the world. And it's also crazy that this entire storyline and like film happened all because they saw their DJ smoking heroin. Like that is the craziest taking off point ever.
Yeah,
because that's how the whole conversation starts, is they're talking about like
whether they should keep her,
like whether we should keep her. And then Emma starts saying like, well, what if this was just like the lowest of her life and like we just happened to witness it?
Yeah, it comes from a place of judgment.
Yeah.
It kicks off how Kristoffer Borgli is kind of weighing on the audience, like what is it like to judge other people? And that's where I think morally, an earlier part of the conversation, it becomes a very hard balancing act objectively, because it's like, this person, there's now something out in the open that he did not admit to, that is now out there because not of his doing, and people are pointing fingers because they're judging. But it's something that, again, morally, a lot of people, most people, I would hope, don't agree with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's a weird thing. It's an interesting movie. It's a crazy movie. It's a tipsy-turvy movie. But I feel like, is there anything else that either of you guys wanted to touch on before we get to scores?
I was going to say, just off of that last point, is like, I think that's kind of what we were talking about, is like, that's something that you could negotiate a little bit more on, is like, oh, well, maybe she was doing this. There's a little bit of a like easier justification for certain things. Like that's probably at like a level 8. The shooting is at like a level 12 out of 10. Like then there's like things that they all go down the line on are like, oh yeah, this was pretty bad. This was pretty bad. This is worse. This is the worst of the worst. So it's like, there's a scale that Borgli almost introduces of like, how do we judge things? How do we separate things? Is this something that we can reconcile with?
Yeah, human morality is a major theme in what the movie kind of unpacks and stuff. But is there anything else you had?
No.
You ready for scores?
I'm ready for scores.
All right, go ahead, Liz.
Liz, go off.
I think I can't really say I enjoyed this film, because I feel like saying you enjoyed it is like a little weird, but like it's definitely very entertaining. I didn't even get to talk actually about the editing, but the editing's my least favorite. I think the writing's really tight. The acting's superb. I'm top tier. And I just really appreciate films like this that just get conversation going and make me like thinking about it at night. And yeah, it's not boring, it's not bad, and I think that you should go see it with somebody. You don't see this alone because you're gonna need to like talk about it with people.
Thank God we have a podcast.
Yeah, thank God we have a podcast to talk. Yeah, you shouldn't watch this alone. Like you should, and maybe like don't see it with your fiance too, or like anybody that you're like newly dating.
Anyone that you actually care about. Take a random stranger
Take
to
a
see
random
this movie.
stranger. But I don't know. I like the conversation of like the bigger picture and trying to figure out like where would you stand. And I don't know where I would stand. It's really like messy, but I like it. And so I'm giving it an 8.
Zach?
Yeah, I'm gonna match you with an 8. I do agree I think we had very similar unpacking. But yeah, there was some editing in the beginning that was a little confusing just with the evolution of their relationship after they first meet. It was a little jarring at first. But overall, I thought that for a comedy and a dark comedy, it builds tension very, very well. I think it's pretty rewatchable. I don't, obviously the subject matter is pretty dark. But I think that after our conversation too, and hearing each of us talk about it, I'm going to revisit it just to go back and hear our points and just see how like it is kind of more focused on the relationship aspect. And then I want to revisit more about how the other couples react initially too, and just like studying that a little bit more. I do prefer Dream Scenario over this one just a little bit more. I think that was just like mind-blowing, and Nicolas Cage was so brilliant in that performance, playing that awkward quirky loser, and this one is a little bit more grounded in reality. I mean, it's not a dream, but it's a real story with exaggerated elements that creates conversation, and it's probably like, along with Project Hail Mary, the most conversation I've had after a movie this year so far.
Yeah. So I feel like I don't remember exactly what Borgli had said when we saw him, because he was at Montclair when we saw the premiere of Dream Scenario. But I think I remember when they asked him about the next film he's doing, it was right around when he was starting to film this. So again, years ago, this movie was filmed. It's taken a while for it to come out, which I'm sure, again, I feel like I would have loved to have seen the original script for this movie, because I feel like there probably were multiple test screenings, and I wonder how they decided on what they decided on. But I remember him talking specifically about dealing in that like spiritual world isn't the right thing, but it's like always in these scenarios of like, how can I amp it up to something that's so extreme but also could be realistic to people. Like you see a lot of that in Dream Scenario, and you see it in this with like even the way he does it in the editing of like taking you back to something like a time of like what if this winded up happening. And not a lot of filmmakers are brave enough to do things like that. So my biggest thing with him in terms of the drama is that I think the ideas and the themes of this movie are the strongest part of it. I think structurally and as a movie, I think it's far worse than Dream Scenario. I think that it follows the exact same pattern in terms of the structure of Dream Scenario and doesn't do it as well. And I also agree, I think the editing is probably the weakest part of this movie. And there's things that I feel like you could punch up script-wise, but I don't think it is a bad movie. I think it is still an overall well-done movie. I think that Zendaya, it's a really, really strong performance from her. And I'm kind of like you, Liz, where I feel like with Pattinson, though I do really enjoy him as an actor overall, like I was on like the latter side of like Mickey 17. Like a lot of people really love that movie, and I'm like, that's not really for me. And like his performance kind of had a lot to do with that, because obviously there's two of them and so much is based in that. So it's a hard subject matter for me personally. I don't know if I'll ever go back and watch it because of that, but maybe as I take a step back, and having this conversation definitely helped with my interpretation of the movie in general. I'm going to give it a 7. So I think it's a good movie. But I think I gave Dream Scenario a 9 or a 9.5. It's just that's more of the lane of what I really enjoyed in the way that he kind of had his twisted kind of storytelling kind of play out. But very curious to hear your guys' thoughts, because this is a movie that is being talked about for a lot of different reasons. So let us know in the comments, what are your guys' thoughts on the film? Keep it civil in the comments, please. Give this video a like if you guys can. Subscribe to us here at Culture Wave Media Network. We are covering so much. We have so much content coming for you guys. I don't even think you understand how much stuff we have. We have so many interviews. So glad. Zach has done some. I have some upcoming with some great filmmakers. and some great actors and actresses and voices in film and TV. So excited to share that stuff with you. We got some more social content coming for you guys. We have week to week right now. We're covering Daredevil Born Again. We have Invincible. We have The Boys starting back up this week. Zach and I think by the time DTF St. Louis is wrapped, we're going to cover that. Euphoria is upcoming. I mean, there's so much. Beef Season 2, which we've been looking forward to for so long, plus all the other movies that are coming for you guys in the next few weeks. Things are starting to pick up, so there's going to be a lot for you guys to check out. If this isn't your jam, there's going to be other stuff for you guys to watch. So please watch that stuff. Share with your family and friends. Follow us on social media and subscribe, as we are closing in on 1,000 subscribers, so we can do even more stuff for you guys going forward. So thank you guys for watching this review. Just signing off. I'm Darian Scalamoni.
I'm Liz Seiko.
I'm Zach Miller.
And we'll see you guys next time.
This is The Culture.